Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, we're back for night number 2. How about that? We made it through the first night. And if you can make it through the first night, you can make it through just about anything. Good evening and welcome to the show, McGraw Milhaven, the new host of the new Price is Right. The new host of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. We have a show planned for you tonight. We have a senior fellow at Stanford University who wrote an op-ed piece in the Washington Post about child test scores. Over the course of the years, they've been going steadily down, and they were going down before COVID, and they haven't really rebounded. And it was a fascinating article, and we asked him if he wanted to come on the show and talk about children and how they survived COVID and didn't survive COVID, and where do we go from here? Because more money is being thrown at the problem, and test scores are not rising. And what does that mean for the future of some of these students? So we'll get into that in this hour. And, of course, we have to set aside an hour for phone calls. So we'll get into all of that this evening here on America at Night. But if you're just tuning in, the new host, last night was our inaugural night. We got through it, and we are off and running. A couple of news stories that I thought was kind of interesting that I wanted to sort of start the night off with. And this first one goes from 2021. And do you remember Cory Booker, who just announced he got married? Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey. When he was running for president in 2020, he announced that he wanted to start a program for babies. The federal government would open up $1,000 savings accounts for every single child born in America. Additional deposits could range anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 based on household income. And the children, once they turn 18, could then withdraw the money. And it was a way for, I guess, for parents to incentivize parents to have children, incentivize children to start saving, and then when they turn 18, have a little bit of a nest egg to sort of get themselves going, whether it's a job or a car or college or house or whatever. And at the time, oh my goodness, the sky was falling, right? The conservatives were up in arms. This is the dumbest thing in the world. This is socialism at its finest. This was back in 2020, Cory Booker's idea. I bring it up because today, Michael Dell and Susan Dell from Dell Computers, dudes getting a Dell, well, they announced, because today is Giving Tuesday, that they are making one of the largest individual charitable donations in the history of mankind. They are gifting $6.25 billion. And what they're doing is the Dells, they're giving everybody a Dell. You get a Dell, you get a Dell, and you get a Dell. They are going to give $250,000 for up to 25 million children under the age of 10. They're going to put it into the Trump accounts. We'll get to that in a second. But the Trump accounts are going to receive the Dell's gift. And the idea is that the payments are going to be limited to the kids with incomes under a certain threshold. And they're going to go to kids in zip codes with the median annual household income under $150,000. So, dudes, you're getting a Dell. But here's the interesting thing about it. And it sounds like a great idea, very wonderful charitable gift. Give it to the kids and let it grow and let them, learn the value of a dollar and everything else. But it was Cory Booker's idea in 2020, which was apparently a very, very liberal and unacceptable idea in 2020 when Cory Booker brought it up. But now that Donald Trump has put into the big, beautiful bill Trump accounts, which in conjunction with this Dell announcement they've announced, that the administration now rolled out new details on these Trump accounts. So children born to parents and families starting in 2026 will receive $1,000 grants. From 2025 to 2028, they're going to receive $1,000, and they're going to be called Trump accounts. And it's Form 4547. Get it? 4547. And parents, family, and employees can start contributing in next year. And it's the exact same thing Cory Booker offered in 2020. But now it's a MAGA idea, whereas before it was a communist idea. Now it's a MAGA idea. Thought that was quite entertaining. A couple of other interesting news items I found. Last night while we were doing our very first show, apparently Donald Trump tweeted over 158 posts from 9 to midnight. So clearly he was listening to the show, so inspired by the show that he was just couldn't stop tweeting and reposting other people's tweets from 9 to midnight during the show. While he was listening to our show, he was tweeting. He was criticizing Eric Holder, Senator Mark Kelly. He was apparently, this is breaking news, he was criticizing President Biden's auto pen, not criticizing his auto pen. He's criticizing Nancy Pelosi, the January 6th. I don't know what he was complaining about the January 6th. And he just made sure that everybody remembered that he was great in Home Alone 2. So there you go. Other news, National Guard members now are all carrying weapons after the shooting in Washington, D.C. And tennis legend Serena Williams announced that she might make a comeback. Did you ever see that movie, King Richard? That was a great movie. Will Smith is a great actor, and that movie was fantastic. And I'd watch Serena Williams read the phone book. So if she wants to try and make a comeback, I say more power to her. So that's just a look at the headlines, some of the interesting things. But I thought that was quite entertaining about Cory Booker. 2020, it's a communist idea. 2025, it's a MAGA all the way. That's why I don't play that game. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to a fellow of the Hoover Institute who wrote an op-ed piece in the Washington Post about students and test scores. And after COVID, where do we go from here? Some really interesting insights from somebody who studies this stuff and looks at where the money's going. What are we doing to the teachers? What are we doing to the students? What are the parents doing? All of that when we come back. Stay right there. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. Our first week here on air, and I was getting ready for the show and read an op-ed piece in the Washington Post and was riveted by it and thought we'd get the author on to talk about it. Eric Hanushek is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute with Stanford University. Eric, welcome to the America at Night.
Well, it's so nice to be with you.
So thanks for joining us on our first week, and I guess the first headline of this op-ed piece in the Washington Post that I read was that seems like the world has been divvied up into before COVID and after COVID, but with test scores, they already seemed to be going in the wrong direction before COVID came along. Talk about that for a moment before COVID.
Well, everybody is fixated on what happened during COVID, and rightfully, because schools were closed for a lengthy time in some places for over a year. But what people had missed was that starting in about 2013, scores started to fall for students. And so that the total decline has been quite dramatic.
Yeah, long before COVID. Let's start before COVID. They seemed to spike in 2013 and then started to go down. So what happened in 2013 that started to see these test scores go down?
Well, it's hard to know for sure. I mean, a lot of people just point to cell phones, and it must be cell phones. But I think that that's too easy of an answer. We had a lot of other things going on. One of the things that I had paid a lot of attention to was the fact that we changed our accountability for schools. We had the ill-regarded No Child Left Behind was replaced by a different federal accountability statute that, in fact, took a lot of pressure off the schools. And so I think that that also contributed.
So what? I know No Child Left Behind got a lot of criticism, and when they implement these things, changes don't happen overnight. Test scores were going up in the early 2000s, so something was working, and then clearly something stopped working, right?
Well, I think that No Child Left Behind has gotten a bad reputation. Part of it's deserved because it wasn't a very good law. People in Washington were trying to guess at how they could do accountability in 2000, and they wrote a 1,000-page law that needed to be fixed, and it never was. But I think that accountability helped because people started focusing on scores, and particularly they disaggregated scores so you could see it by demographic groups and by poverty and what have you. And schools started paying attention to what students were doing.
Yeah, it is interesting in that article you wrote, the graph you have of the math scores and the reading scores. And it's interesting how those graphs mimic each other, right? When the test scores go up, the reading scores go up. When the math scores go down, the reading scores go down. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the math scores and the reading scores.
Well, I think it's overall the quality of learning. Math and reading are actually very highly correlated, so that people who do well in reading often, or most often, do well in math too.
Yeah.
And you're seeing some of that. But schools are complicated places, but they produce common effects on learning.
Yeah. So COVID comes, and all the schools are shut down, right? And for a researcher like yourself, right, whether you're for it or against it, you have all this new data to sort of look at. Money gets thrown at schools like never before. They all get kicked out of the classrooms. There's some varying degree of at-home learning, but there's also a flood of money into these schools. And test scores plummeted. And we obviously messed up. Do we know what we did wrong? Was it as simple as sending the kids home? I mean, what happened during COVID?
Well, sending kids home was, I think, a big part of the whole thing. What we've learned from COVID is not a very surprising thing. It's that having a teacher in the classroom is really important. And being in class with a teacher is better than having a hybrid situation where you sometimes have a teacher and sometimes have an at-home situation. And both of those are better than fully remote, where we had in some schools where kids never went to school. They sat at home, sometimes not even looking at school at the same time as their teachers were providing it. And so we have learned the importance of teachers. If we ever doubted it before, we've learned it through COVID.
Yeah, teachers, but what about the Skype aspect of it? The teacher having, 13 kids on a screen in 13 different places. I guess we learned that didn't make any sense either, or did we?
No, I think we did learn that that's not very good. We've learned since then that Zoom calls and Skype calls and so forth are really valuable for some things, like if you and I want to have a conversation tonight, a Zoom call is really good. But when you talk about doing a Zoom with large numbers of people at the other end, you just don't have a conversation. It's all sequential, where one person talks, then the other person talks, and it's not like a normal conversation, and it's not a good way to teach.
Eric Hanushek is our guest. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford University. Wrote an op-ed piece about test scores and COVID and money, and we thought we'd get him on here to sort of pick his brain a little bit. More money was given to education than ever before. Did anything positive come from all of this money we gave schools during COVID?
Well, I think you can find some places where it worked, but you find a lot of places where it didn't. Even though the kids were out of school for lengthy periods of time, much of the money was used to renovate schools and put in air conditioning and other things. The money that was used in the classroom wasn't done very well. You had, for example, attempts to add a couple school days during the year or lengthen the school day with some voluntary aspects afterwards. And those things just weren't implemented very well, so that you had a lot of time spent without much learning going on.
This last weekend, 60 Minutes did an interesting story about it was an organization called iGen, where they take these high school kids and they break down all sorts of scientific projects, and they have a big competition in Paris. And one of the interesting things in this story was that I think China had like some ridiculous number of these high-tech scientific teams, like 300 or some odd teams, and America had 14. So I mean, other countries seem to be spending money and doing it right. What is it about America that we spend more money on education and we don't get the test scores or the results other countries get?
Well, I think it's a little bit complicated, but part of the story is that we don't pay attention enough to whether kids are learning, so that we have lots of time spent on schools and we give people credit for time in schools without paying attention to the kinds of things like the test scores that you saw before. And we can go into more detail.
Professor, hold that thought. I shouldn't have asked such an involved question with up against the break. Eric Hanushek is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford. Back in a moment on America at Night.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, we got some breaking news here. There was a special election in Tennessee. Good news for the Republicans. Matt Van Epps ends up winning this special election. Now Republicans control 220 seats in the House. Democrats control 214. So some good news for Republicans after that tough special election a couple weeks ago. We'll have more of that throughout the night. But this hour, we're talking to Eric Hanushek, who is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute of Stanford University, talking about schools and test scores and money. And Eric, let me, the headline of this story is what really caught my attention. And you said in this story that an 8% lifetime tax is coming for students. And I'll let you explain it. But it was quite shocking in that your premise is, and expand on this if you would, that because test scores are going down, kids aren't going to do as well. And if you're not going to do as well, you're not going to make as much money.
You hit it right perfectly, McGraw. The people who know more earn more. That's a simple fact that's been well documented in the U.S. economy. And the fall in test scores that we've seen since from 2013 until today means that the kids in school today and ready to go out into the labor market or into college are going to be behind those that were there a dozen years ago. Well, now, the problem that we normally have is that the U.S. government announces test scores every other year, and people say, oh my, we just lost, or our scores went down by 2 points. And 2 points has no meaning to anybody. It's just an arbitrary number. But you can translate the number of points that scores have fallen into earnings that people will get in the labor market. And you can do that because there's a lot of research on exactly how much learning matters. And if you work it out, today's students are going to earn lifetime 8% less than students in 2013. Now, that's an average figure. There's a lot of variation around that. But this is a huge number. If I told you that I was going to put a surcharge on your income tax of 8%, you would be ready to riot. But this is what we've done to our students by letting scores fall.
Yeah, and that's what I think it got the most attention. So let's talk about some of the remedies and some of the good and the bad, because all of a sudden this gets political, and they've been talking about doing away with the Department of Education. My contention is most people have no idea what the Department of Education actually does. But getting rid of that, incorporating it, folding what it does into another agency, does that make much sense? I mean, what are some of the things that can be done to sort of reverse this?
Well, the federal government is actually a minor player in our education system. It accounts for only about 10% of the revenue that schools have for schools. The rest is provided by states and localities. And in fact, states have the largest role in running our schools because each state has their own sets of regulations and rules about schools and so forth. Now, getting rid of the Department of Education is the money is not going to go away, because they're just talking about transferring it to other parts of the federal government. And the federal government really just passes money on to the states and localities. So you can think of ways that can work. What we're really missing, though, at the state level and at the federal level is incentives to do better. We don't have very strong incentives or push for schools and students to do better. And that has huge implications. So if you don't really care about how well students do, you don't get all worked up if one teacher isn't doing a very good job. You let it ride. And that's an important cost to our system, is that unlike the Chinese that you talked about earlier in the last segment, unlike the Chinese, they don't let bad teachers stay in the classroom for very long. And that's what you see in most of the high-performing countries around the world, is that if they have bad teachers, they're not allowed to stay in the classroom.
Yeah. What about the parents? Because can you survive a bad teacher? I had great teachers. I had terrible teachers. I had teachers that I thought were terrible that turned out to be great. I had great teachers that I thought were terrible, right? But it was the parents who made me read at night. It was the parents who had the stimulating conversation at the dinner table. I mean, is it as simple as that? I mean, I get that you have to have a good teacher, but it can't just be all on the teacher, can it?
No, not at all. We know that parents are extraordinarily important. And if you got a good draw on a parent, you can be way better off than if you got a bad draw on a parent. We do know that teachers can make up for bad draws on parents. But part of what you see, for example, in China and much of East Asia, is that these societies, to the person, take education seriously, so that the parents are going to the school to find out how well their kids did. I have a Chinese co-author who talks about her parents going in to school 4 times a year, and they would look on the school door where they listed all of the students in order of performance. And the parents, but now we can't do anything like that, and maybe don't want to, but the parents were so involved, and my co-author's parents said, "Why are you number 3? Why aren't you number 1?" There was a lot of pressure from the families, even if they didn't know how to read to their kids. They wanted to make sure that they were doing well.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you mentioned earlier time, right? We equate days in school with learning, but
Right.
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that, and I don't know if it should be test scores. It should be actually understanding. I don't know how you would actually test for that, but it's actually a pretty interesting point. Who cares if it takes the kid a week to learn fractions, just as long as the kid learns fractions?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we threw off a bunch of kids during the pandemic, because if you missed 4th grade because of the pandemic, you may never be able to do Algebra 1 because you missed fractions.
Yeah, but I understand the political argument about the money, but the private schools, right? They charge a lot of money. Costs a lot of money to go to a private school, and the more prestigious private school, the more money it costs. So money's got to play a part in it somewhere.
It can, and it's absolutely true that if you use money well, it can do wonders in schools. The problem is that without any incentives to perform well, schools may or may not use extra funds well. That's what we saw during the pandemic. There were no requirements to have kids learn more because you had more money, and they could spend it sometimes to help kids and sometimes not.
Yeah. And then we also saddle these schools with all the social aspects of it, right? I mean, it's not just, math and science and engineering and technology. It's all the social structure and everything else that comes along with it, and school lunches, and you got to make sure the kids are fed, and right, the kids are dealing with all these other issues, and they're all dumped on the schools, and then we complain that the schools aren't teaching our kids when we've turned them into basically social service places to go.
No doubt about it, but that's partly that everybody has to focus on what matters, and that's learning in our primary and secondary schools. You want kids to be learning, and if we don't pay attention to learning, we don't get that very good learning. That's why we're 34th in the world in math performance.
Yeah, that's pretty stark, and that's what you said in your op-ed piece. Eric Hanushek, one last question for you, one last theme. I just sort of a question for you coming from Stanford and college loans and college tuition and college student loans being repaid and everything. I've always wondered what college would cost if you couldn't get a student loan, right? If I couldn't pay $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 to go to Harvard, how much would it cost if I couldn't take out a loan, right? How much would a car cost if I couldn't take out a loan to pay for that car? And my question to you is, because there's access to that money, does that allow the universities, the higher educations, the secondary schools to charge more because you can get more money?
Well, you're getting pretty close to where I work here, McGraw. But it is, there's some evidence that more grants to students do, in fact, lead to somewhat higher tuition. But that's really not the driving force, I don't think. I think that the driving force is that universities do lots of things, not all in the interest of learning, but that it's a very complicated story. But it's not that it all comes from just trying to take as much money as we can because it's there.
Yeah. Do you see a backlash for colleges and universities now? A lot of people saying it's so expensive it just might not be worth it anymore.
I do see that, and I think most of that is actually misguided. It turns out that there's overwhelming evidence that colleges still provide great returns on those investments on average. Now, some people don't learn much, or they choose wrong fields that don't pay very much. But on average, college is a great return on dollar invested. And so I think that part of that is a little bit too much media looking for an interesting twist on things.
Yeah.
Because it's just not the case.
I went to a state school, University of Nebraska. I paid for a Big 8 education, and apparently I got a Big 10 education now that they're in the Big 10. And I learned, but I think some of what I learned is who I met. And years later, I was able to sort of lean on some of those resources that I met to get me a job interview, or go to the bank for a loan because I knew the guy from college, or I knew her mother because I went to school with the daughter or something, right? It's not just the learning, it's the whole.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's always been said that some of our more elite schools, I won't give names here, they admit very smart people, and the big return is from the people they meet.
Yeah, interesting. Eric Hanushek is with us. She is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. An op-ed piece in the Washington Post. It was titled, "An 8% lifetime tax is coming for students. The less they know, the less they earn." And with test scores going down, his opinion and his hypothesis was that they are going to earn less because of test scores going down. Eric Hanushek, thank you very much. Interesting conversation. Thank you for joining us on our first week, and I hope to talk to you down the road.
McGraw, I hope to do that too. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Thank you very much. This is America at Night. McGraw Milhaven, back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, we got some news tonight. I guess CNN, I see CNN has broke the news that Matt Van Epps has won the special election in the Tennessee House District. The Democrats were sort of insinuating they had a chance to win this district. Trump won the district by 22 points, a year or so ago? And Democrats were making a whole lot of hay that they could actually flip this seat. I think they got a little bit over their skis out on this one. Republicans sent a lot of money. They called out the troops, and Trump made a couple of appearances. But Matt Van Epps, according to CNN, has declared a victory. So the Republicans win this seat. There's 220 Republicans now in the House of Representatives after Marjorie Taylor Greene leaves, and this one leaves, and Stefanik starts going to run for governor and whatever else. But right now it's 220 Republicans, 214 Democrats. So still a pretty razor-thin margin for Speaker Mike Johnson. All right, I'm McGraw Milhaven here, America at Night, our inaugural week. We're talking about education this week. Next hour, there's a documentary on HBO called Thoughts and Prayers, and it's talking about and takes a look at active shooters and school shootings and what's being done to sort of prevent it, and the billion-dollar industry that is growing up around active shooters. We'll get into some of that next hour. But I do believe we have a phone call. Paul in Boise. Paul's from Boise. Paul, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you, sir. It's been some time since I studied the Holocaust. I had a different kind of education where my 7th, 8th, and 9th grades were starting up a bookstore for my parents, a used bookstore. So I got out of 35,000 copies of books, I could choose whatever it was I wanted for the book of the day, if you will.
Yeah.
And the ones I gravitated towards were World War II and the Nazis, which I, having studied it for 3 years of my life and learning enough to know about them, to know how evil the Nazis were, and how I got to go. I'm sorry. I like it taught in school.
Yeah. Isn't the Holocaust taught in school today? Is it not taught in school today? Paul? Paul's got a dog on the loose. Thanks for the phone call, Paul. I mean, I haven't been to school in a while, but when we were in school, we were taught the Holocaust. We saw some of those films, and it was front and center. You know, teaching of the history has gotten political, but it was 70 years ago yesterday, right? Rosa Parks got in a bus and said, I don't want to go to the back of the bus. That was 70 years ago. And that started the Montgomery bus boycott. And, right, Rosa Parks, they consider, right, one of the early founders of the civil rights movement, the one that sort of brought attention to it all. That was 70 years ago, right? That should be taught. The Holocaust should be taught. It all should be taught. That's part of our history. Part of makes us who we are. All right. That's going to do it for this hour. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. And this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Thanks for joining us. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, thanks for sticking around. McGraw Milhaven here, America at Night. And hope you're getting a taste and a sense of what we're trying to do here. We're sort of having late night conversations. Next hour, third hour, will always be open phones, and we'll try and take some phone calls here or there. If you have a question for a guest or something, we'll always try and save some time for a quick question to a guest, because I always love that when Jim used to do that, right? You'd have a guest, and he'd take some time for some questions, and it was always had great questions from the audience, so we love that. But then, of course, open phones, where the hour is all yours, and we can sit and chew on the fat, talk about the news of the day. One big kind of news story today was Republicans win that special Tennessee election. Matt Van Epps wins. You know, I all day long, there's a big talk was, do the Democrats have a chance? I mean, talk about media hype. That whole thing was just all day long. I was like, they're piping this thing a little bit too much, right? Democrats, I don't care how bad Donald Trump's going, and I don't care how bad his poll numbers are. He won the district by 22 points, okay? He's not tanking that bad, and his base ain't leaving him. So a district that's pretty Republican, where the guy won 22 points ahead of his Democratic challenger, a year later, it's a relatively safe seat. So turns out the national media was just trying to sort of, right, create a story about this one. So Matt Van Epps wins right now. The latest polling looks like 99% of the vote is in. He's winning 53-45. With that said, it went from a 22-point victory for the Republican a year ago to a 9-point? So that is interesting. Now, was it enough to flip? No. But it's cut in half. Now, again, special election, off year, December, holiday season. Okay, some of that. But still, Put that in the grist mill. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. McGraw Milhaven here, America at Night. Coming up this hour, we didn't plan it this way, but two educational topics. This hour coming up, HBO has a new documentary called Thoughts and Prayers, and it's getting a lot of attention, and it's going to debut here shortly. And so we got some of the filmmakers on to talk about the documentary. We'll do that coming up here in a bit. Another interesting story in which I get a lot of grief for talking about are gambling and sports, and how I think this is a disaster. Well, it's not waiting to happen. It's a disaster that's happening right before our very eyes. These NBA players who are getting suspended for getting caught gambling. You have Major League Baseball players getting caught gambling. Well, add this to the mix. New York City just moved one step closer to signing off on 3 new casinos in New York City. One of the casinos is going to be in Queens in a racetrack. One of them is going to be in the Bronx at a former Trump golf course. And the third one is going to be right next to, now the official word is Citi Field. I still call it Shea Stadium. But they're going to put that big, giant land that's been cleared for, 10 years now, that's been sitting vacant, waiting to be redeveloped. Now looks like that casino, that long-sought casino by Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, is going to go through. So it looks like the Mets owner, Steve Cohen, is going to get a license for a major casino in Hard Rock Cafe, I guess, hotel complex, the whole thing, right there next to Citi Field, which I should tell you that my grandfather, who grew up in Astoria, used to play baseball on that swampland that is where Shea Stadium was, and now Citi Field is now going to be a casino. But, yeah, no, that's going to do real well. Yeah, there's going to be no problem having a casino attached to a baseball field. Nothing says America and apple pie and Chevrolet like a casino where you can bet on every single pitch, and then have the players harassed by the gamblers because they didn't do what they needed them to do and they lost their mortgage. So I don't really understand why baseball is going down. I guess I do, but I think they're opening up a Pandora's box that they're not going to close, and I think it's going to ultimately blow up all in their face. But what do I know? All right, so hang tight. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll check in with the filmmakers of this new documentary on HBO that's getting a lot of attention called Thoughts and Prayers. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Milhaven.
Tough conversation to have about school shootings, but unfortunately it is very real. 15 school shootings this year alone that resulted in injuries or deaths, according to the website Education Week. 15 school shootings, 48 people killed or injured in school shootings. Listen to this. Over the last 8 years, since 2018, right? That's what is that? That's 8 years. There have been 236 school shootings. 39 school shootings in last year. There were 38 school shootings in 2023, 51 school shootings in 2022, 35 in 2021, 10 in 2020, COVID year, which is interesting. 24 in both 2019 and 2018 for a total of 236 school shootings since 2018. HBO has a new documentary out called Thoughts and Prayers, and it looks at school shootings. Jessica Dimmock is the co-director of the HBO documentary that is out now called Thoughts and Prayers. Jessica, welcome to America at Night.
Hi, thank you so much.
So tell us, how did this project come to be? Did you stumble across it? Is this near and dear to your heart? How'd you get involved with this?
Well, I'm a mom. I have a daughter who's now 8, and at the time that she was starting to go to school and we were starting to think about school, my husband, who I co-directed this film with, and I, did what I think a lot of American parents do, which is you start to realize, wow, she's going to be in these active shooter drills, and wow, this is this kind of unique American reality that she's going to have to deal with. And so we started kind of exploring that, and originally we thought about just photographing drills. Like, what would it look like if you were to go into a classroom and you saw students huddled in the dark, hiding in their cubbies or under their desks, a teacher kind of standing by the door? Like, wouldn't that be a very haunting image? But as we explored it more, we also realized that there's this whole huge industry, this $3 billion industry of preparedness. And so that's kind of when it became more of a film.
It's interesting because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and you watch these stories develop over the years, and you think to yourself, oh, this is horrible, this is terrible. And you think, well, I mean, it's a 1 in a billion chance. It's not going to happen to my daughter, right? It's not going to happen to me. And then maybe, I don't know, it was last spring, I was in a building and there was a tornado siren went off. And I looked around, and so she was, whatever it was, for kindergarten. And she huddles on the floor and puts her head between her legs and covers up like it's a bomb drill from the 1950s. Right. And I thought, that stark image of her, it broke my heart. Yeah. In some way, I was proud of her, and in other ways, it broke my heart that you have to teach the kindergarten what to do in an emergency.
Yeah. And, the example that you give is so interesting, right? Because what to do in the case of an emergency like a natural disaster is one thing. What to do in the case of something that really should be and is preventable, something that they should never have to face. It's not a natural occurrence. It's something very designed by the way that we live. And so when you realize that they have to kind of practice for something, and that practice is kind of a failure on our part, how have we failed to protect our children to this extent? That's also part of the heartbreaking part of this.
Yeah. The documentary Thoughts and Prayers, it's almost absurdist. And I don't mean that as a negative. I'm watching this, and you're almost laughing because you can't believe you're watching reality. Yeah.
I mean, there were so many. The fact that you're using the word absurdist is, music to my ears. That's very much what we're trying to do. We know that this topic is really hard and heartbreaking for this country. It's hard for anyone who's a parent or not a parent. You just have to have a heart to realize that this is so tragic. And so we often use the word absurd. When we were in the edit, we would often say to our editor, cut this scene like it's a scene from a Christopher Guest film and not like a scene from a documentary. There's a dark humor. At times there's levity. At times you're laughing and also it's worth pointing out that in the film, because we're just exploring the industry of preparedness, no one gets hurt. It's not a film about an actual shooting or an actual event. Instead, it's just all of the things that we're doing to kind of prepare for when this does happen.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there's a whole billion-dollar industry that has been created because of all these school shootings. Yeah,
$3 billion industry filled with, I believe, a lot of well-intentioned people. I mean, I think our film, we are critical of the kind of industry as a whole, but not of, we realize that most of the people in the industry are trying to solve a problem. Is there a little bit of opportunistic and predatory behavior in there? Sure. It's also capitalism, that's going to exist in anything. But I think for the most part, the industry is filled with people that say, okay, in the absence of meaningful gun reform, what can we do? Well, we can design a bulletproof insert for a backpack, or we can design a bulletproof tabletop for a table, or bulletproof art, or bulletproof skateboards, or a robot dog, or, you know, a new app, a new alarm, a new, you know, but all of it is, you know, and much of the industry, if not really all of the industry, is really based on the notion that this is going to happen. None of these products or programs prevent school shootings. They prepare you for what to do when it happens.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have teachers in my family. A bunch of my sisters are teachers.
Awesome.
I watched. They went into education because they love kids. They loved learning, right? And they didn't want to hold a gun. They didn't want to become in the military. And yet the teachers, and I know it's become political. You know, some people say arm all the teachers. Well, a lot of teachers don't want to be armed. Or they want to, you know, they want to teach fractions. And you're part of the teaching is now how to hold a gun, what to do with a gun, how to shoot a gun, you know, how to sort of clear a classroom. I mean, this is heartbreaking stuff. Yeah,
and how to shoot a gun potentially, statistically, maybe at one of your own students. So not just at some, you know, ominous bad guy that enters, but like maybe someone from within your school community or from your larger community. I mean, that's a tall order for even the most highly trained police officers, let alone being able to keep your cool with, you know, a handgun when someone comes into your classroom with an AR-15, because we know statistically that's kind of the weapon of choice of school. You know, so there's so many like ifs in that equation. And I think like you're saying, most people that entered into education did not do so thinking that they were going to have to take up arms. I think many of our teachers would be willing to because they want to do anything to protect their students. But they're in an impossible situation, let alone like when the police finally do enter, how do they know that the teacher is the good guy with the gun? Yeah. How do they know that the teacher isn't the shooter? I mean, there's so many variables and complications that will happen as a result of that scenario, you know, but I like that you bring up teachers. I mean, I think there's a huge stakeholder when it comes to this conversation. If any of your listeners are teachers, I mean, I am all ears for how we get this conversation going amongst teachers. How do I get this film into the hands of more teachers? I mean, I'm so interested in their perspective. It's part of the reason we focused on them so much.
Yeah,
in the film.
The documentary on HBO is called Thoughts and Prayers. I want to talk about how the journey to get it to HBO, but a couple more questions about the actual movie itself, because again, there's so many jaw-dropping scenes that I don't even. Maybe you don't even realize they were jaw-dropping. Just the fact that there's a conference of vendors who can show you, like there's a woodworking convention in town. Oh, there's an active shooter convention in town where you can go and look at all these products, where you can go and buy these safety things for your school. Yeah.
Oh, and it's just like any, you know, we were telling our friend Venice about this just recently. You know, it's just like any convention. It's got like the lazy river and the casino night and the band playing. I mean, it's just a normal convention, but what you have there are all of these kind of, you know, it's like American entrepreneurs at its best. And instead of ever taking a product off of the shelves, we will just add more products to the problem. So people are trying to come up with things to help. And that could be anything from tourniquets that are tiny so that they can fit around kindergartner and first graders' arms, because most tourniquets on the market would never stop the bleed in that type of situation, because why would you need to make those? But now we do. To, you know, certain types of locking systems for doors, like I said, you know, bulletproof lining on bookcases and desktops, you know, I mean, anything you can think of.
I like the bulletproof skateboard. That was a nice touch. Jessica Dimmock is our guest. Hang tight. She's co-director of an HBO documentary called Thoughts and Prayers. It is available on HBO right now. We'll come back and talk more with her in a moment. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in just a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Milhaven.
There is a new documentary on HBO that's getting a lot of attention. It's called Thoughts and Prayers, How to Survive an Active Shooter in America. The co-director, Jessica Dimmock, is joining us for a couple of minutes. Jessica, there's thousands of documentaries that are made every year, and they never see the light of day. Take a minute and talk about and pat yourself in the back and tell us, how did you get the documentary from the thought stage to the filming stage to HBO finally picking it up? That's a great accomplishment.
We did a fair amount. My partner and I, Zach Canapari, and I did a fair amount of the initial kind of research and shooting on our own. So we knew that in order to kind of shop this around, we would really need like a strong proof of concept. It's a hard film to describe. It's not a typical film where you follow a character and that character changes over the course of time. You know, if anything, we really want our audience to be the one that changes over the, period of the film. And so we did kind of, a proof of concept, and then we brought it to them, after at least a year, and they were the perfect partner for it. They're the perfect kind of mix of, well-respected, but also willing to take risks, not algorithm-based, not concerned about when their audience is going to, change the channel or just really gave us the freedom to kind of make it in the way that we wanted, which was such a gift.
The other thing, reading or watching this documentary, there's another part of this that look at it from the school point of view, and that is, if you don't do these things, right? If you don't go to the conventions, if you don't get to this or do this training for the math teachers and the science teachers, and then God forbid something happens, right? Then all of a sudden you didn't do enough to protect my child.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a lot of the calculation that goes into this. I mean, I think that there's very little proof or evidence that any of these drills, products, programs actually do anything. I think after spending a few years looking at it, I would say that we're probably participating in safety theater. That being said, I'm a parent. I get it. If something were to happen at my kid's school, I want her to know what to do. I want the teachers to know what to do. So how can you not? And on top of it, us being such a litigious society, the liability of saying, well, we could have done this preparation and we opted not to. No municipality or school district or township wants to expose themselves to that. But I think the reality is that nothing can prepare us for one of these events. And what our energy should be focused on is stopping these things from occurring. I think at a certain point in filming, my partner and I realized that everything we were looking at was practice and not prevention. And I don't want to live in a society where we're practicing for what to do when these things happen. I want to get to a place where we figure out how to stop them from happening.
Yeah, and every time one of these shooters stories happen, it ultimately goes political, and you can write the script itself, right? If it's a young white male, people have their arguments. If it's a Muslim-sounding name, people have their arguments. If it's a Latino-sounding name, they have their arguments, right? And they're all sort of these mental health issues, but based on the person's name and some of the facts, we all cling to the political point of view.
Yeah. And I think, and part of clinging to the political point of view is there's always this thing about not making it political. Like, this is not something that politics can solve or our legislators can solve. And it's like, well, of course it is. Of course we can solve this. I think our approach, and that's what I'm saying now that I'm on your show, our film very much is coming from the standpoint that we are also trying to take politics out of this and not really preaching about any of the things that should be done, but instead we're examining, like, what are we doing instead? And if we look at all the things that we're doing, does this feel like a healthy society?
Yeah. Well, and you can't. You have to acknowledge the political, right? I mean, because no matter, two people will sit in a room and one's convinced that everybody has to have guns and the other one's convinced that nobody has to have guns. And so every time these things happens, they throw tomatoes at each other. They argue with each other. They call each other names. And then it dies down after 2 or 3 days. I got to tell you, as a news person or a radio person, and I feel heartbroken every time something like this happens, but how do you keep saying the same things over and over again? And unfortunately, it's become almost normal. And it becomes we become callous to it. If it doesn't happen right in our own hometown, it's terrible and tragic. But what can I say that's going to change anything? So we become almost callous to this horrible story. Yeah.
Oh, and certainly, and imagine then being like a kid in this environment. Yeah. Imagine growing up in a country where, like, you're taught from kindergarten on that at any time during one of your classes, one of your friends or one of your friends' brothers or sisters, probably brother, could come in and shoot all of you. You're just taught that. And then you're also taught that when it does happen in the next town over, in the next state over, that there's nothing that can be done. I think one of the most interesting things about making it was talking to teenagers and realizing how completely disheartened they feel like no one's listening to them. And they also feel like the rights of guns are more important than their safety, which is an interesting perspective. That's not a political stance. That's just kids saying, I guess guns are more important than the safety of all the children. I mean, that's their words.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about, you talk to everybody across the spectrum, teachers, administrators, parents, students. Talk about some of the parents you talk to, because I'm sure that's where you, while trying not to be political, you sort of stepped on some political toes and how'd you dealing with the parents?
Well, it's interesting. We actually didn't involve the parents much at all. But we talked. You're right that we speak to a wide variety of people. I'll say this, which is that we talk to a bunch of students, and then we talk to a lot of the adults that are kind of designing these programs, designing the drills and the products and all those things. And it's interesting because on the adult side, the guns would never come up if we didn't bring it up. The kids have a lot more clarity about it. The kids say things like guns are the number one cause of death amongst children in the United States, which is true. That's CDC, Center for Disease Control statistic. The kids say this is a uniquely American problem. That is also true. This doesn't happen anywhere else. So the children are really the ones that have the clarity. The adults, the program designers, the teacher, they're the ones that are like, we're all kind of talking around in circles. And guns would never come up if we didn't bring it up with that group.
Yeah. Guns, but it's also, and we talk about this all the time, is cell phones. and the mental health of the children and the radicalization of some of these children, the internet, the cell phones are so prevalent. They've sort of taken the place of human interaction. I don't know if you can blame the cell phone itself like you can blame the gun, but the cell phone has got to be part of the conversation. I'm no expert, but it's sucking the brain matter out of these children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is no doubt that there is a depression, mental health, loneliness epidemic happening with our young people, and with so many of us. We are more further polarized and fragmented, than ever before. That being said, that's not unique to the U.S. I mean, you go to anywhere in Europe and the kids are going to be on the same cell phones with the same, made by the same, with the same technology and the same apps on them. But this is not happening in Sweden and Germany and France. This is not happening all throughout South America. I mean, this is, again, kind of a uniquely American problem. So what drives someone to go and create an atrocity like this? All of the things you're saying, the mental health, the isolation, but what is the tool that then allows that to go from a thought to an actuality? Well, that's something that, the lowest common denominator in America is access to firearms and high capacity firearms. I mean, otherwise this would happen anywhere where there are teenagers with cell phones.
Jessica Dimmock is our guest. She's co-director of a new HBO documentary called Thoughts and Prayers. Jessica, we have a question from the audience. I want to get them on real quick. Ray in Atlanta, what's your question? Ray, are you there? Ray, one more time. We lost him. His question was, Jessica, any talk about hiring veterans to patrol the school? Guards, safety guards, armed guards, any talk about that?
It's a great question. So there's actually, in a lot of the programs that we profile, it's actually filled with, former military, former law enforcement, because they have the expertise, right? One of the problems there, though, is that, we are bringing people that have done several tours in Afghanistan into our schools and our classrooms to guard them. And I guess it begs the question, why? Are our classrooms war zones? Are our schools and our kind of communities turning into war zones? And if they are, if we require military around our kind of, places of education, well, I'd like to also, perhaps having guards there would be effective, but also like an examination of why it is such a violent place in this country yet again is worth exploring.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting idea, conversation. Jessica Dimmock has written as part of a documentary on HBO. It's out now called Thoughts and Prayers, How to Survive an Active Shooter in America. It's getting a lot of attention out there. Jessica, thanks for coming on our inaugural week. Good luck with the documentary, and we hope to check in with you down the road.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You got it. The documentary is called Thoughts and Prayers, HBO. It's streaming on HBO Max, also on HBO, debuted back in November. I'm McGraw Milhaven, America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. Let's go to the phones. Ray in Atlanta. Sorry we couldn't hook you up during the conversation with our guest, but you're back now. Ray in Atlanta, welcome to America at Night.
Hello, Mr. America at Night. I don't remember your name. Forgive me.
That's okay.
Listen, I just can't believe the other nonsense I'm hearing on the radio regarding the topic. I'm not trying to be insulting to you. Don't get me wrong. It's just I tuned in and caught the last part of it regarding school security.
Yeah.
Listen, just round up some local veterans. Go through your neighborhood. Say, hey, who would like to volunteer? It is not the teacher's place to carry a gun or pull security. It's not their place. They're supposed to teach. We will take care of the neighborhoods if you let us. We're not political. We have children and grandchildren too. I just can't believe what I was just hearing.
I don't understand. What did you hear that you couldn't believe?
Army teachers with guns and whatnot. I mean, I'm not saying
well, yeah, no, that's a look. I mean, I don't know if there are enough veterans out there to patrol all the classroom, all the schools. I mean, how many hundreds and hundreds of schools are there in Atlanta? Not to mention elementary schools and junior highs and high schools and daycares and all that stuff. I mean, there's more schools than there are veterans out there. So you can't have a veteran at every school, assuming you could get every veteran to do it, because some of them have other lives and careers and businesses, so you can't get every veteran to do it. Not to mention they're not going to do it for free, so there's a cost involved. So I don't understand what you don't understand.
I volunteer myself, and I can guarantee.
Well, no, I understand it. That would be great to volunteer, but you're one person. So you'd go to the high school. Okay, what do you do with the other 700 high schools in Atlanta?
Volunteer. We rotate out, and also there's more of us out here than you realize.
I know there are a lot of veterans out there. I think there are more schools than you realize out there, and not every veteran would do it, could do it, or was physically able to do it.
Okay, well, give me a chance.
Okay. Well, I'm not in charge, so I don't know if I can. I'm not the one stopping you. I'm not the one stopping you, Ray, from patrolling the school and keeping it safe. You probably have to go to your school board. Ray, thank you for the phone call. Tony in Montreal, welcome to America at Night.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
It's funny because hi. I just want to say I'm happy that you're on the air. I've been following the show with Rich Valdez for a while up in Canada because we like conservative radio and we don't have a lot of conservative radio, and I actually can listen to you on WVMT Vermont straight off my radio sitting in my car in my driveway because that's the easiest way to get you guys. I just want to say shout out to St. Louis because I have an affinity for St. Louis. I love the St. Louis Billikens hockey team. I was recruited by them back when Mr. Selman, Bill Selman, was the coach. So I know you're a longtime St. Louis person, and St. Louis Cardinals, great organization too in baseball, and I love the city. And unfortunately, I didn't make it there. I ended up at another NCAA hockey team in the East, Colby College. So I was just curious to know if you followed the hockey, but that's a big thing here in Canada. We love our hockey.
No. I know hockey is a big thing. I know hockey is a big thing in Canada. I grew up in Long Island, so I grew up in the heyday of the Islanders. And I watched, Trottier and Bossy and Billy Smith and all those guys win Stanley Cups. A Blues fan, not as big of a hockey fan. I didn't grow up with it, so I'm a fan of the Blues and a fan when they won the Stanley Cup a couple years ago. I'm not an expert in hockey, so I just sort of a natural rooting interest in the Blues and the Islanders. But there's people who know a lot more about hockey than I do. But it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch, and I think the power play and the pull the goalie is two of the most exciting plays in all of sports.
Well, you're kind for saying that. I just want to quickly say one thing tonight. When I listened to that lady about the high schools, I don't really feel that the security issue is well taken care of by school boards. There should be armed guards in every school, every church, every place where there are soft targets, hospitals, etc.
Tony, thank you for the phone call. Thank you for listening, and thank you for calling in. We'll do open phones next hour. I got to do this. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right. We're into it. Hour number 3. That means phone calls. Here's how it works. McGraw Milhaven is my name. And it's okay. We had a caller last hour say, sorry, I didn't catch your name. It's a mouthful. Yeah, it's an occupational hazard getting into radio with a name like McGraw Milhaven. So no need to apologize if you forget. I know we're new. Night number 2. And I got to tell you, it's much easier doing the show when you can actually hear the studio and hear the callers. That's much easier and a much better way to do a show than we did last night. We had some technical difficulties. Someday when we're settled in and we're rocking and rolling, I'll tell the story of last night. But it was a good one. We had some people laughing off the air about it today. But the hour is yours. It's hour 3. And I say this, I say it again, I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. Every study we ever do, every listener interaction we ever do, every survey we ever do says that open phones is our favorite hour of the night. And where you are listening, what you're doing, topic that you heard earlier in the show, something that happened to you earlier in the day, maybe something from last night or 2 weeks ago, or something's on your mind, or you're bored or you're lonely and you're just looking for somebody to talk to and have a nice little conversation with about whatever question, sports question, personal question. It's open phones, and that's the most fun of hosting a late night show. And so here are the phone numbers: 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw. That's 1-844-262-4729. Now, I have been told that we are getting a text line, which will be great, because I know some people are driving and you can't, you're driving, you can't call, or you're doing something and you can't call, but you want to chime in on something. And so the text is a great way to sort of chime in. Don't let that take the place of the phone calls, because we love phone calls. But the idea is that the hour is yours. And whatever you want to talk about, that's the most fun. So that's the goal, and we'll see how it goes. And so, again, we'll talk about some of the news of the day, and then whatever you want to talk about. Because today, I guess the 2 big stories, one of them was that this special election in Tennessee, they were trying to pump up as some big Democratic shock if Trump, who won this district by 22%, somehow Democrats were able to flip. Well, they didn't flip it. It remains in Republican hands. Okay. However, it wasn't a 22% victory like it was last time. It was only like an 8 or 9% victory. And so, like so many things today, it's a Rorschach test. And everybody picks what they want to out of the news. And so Republicans are going to be happy that they retain the seat. Democrats are going to be happy because even though they lost the seat, they only lost it by 8% as opposed to 22%. So, see, that shows you here come the other Democrats, and the Republicans are scared. Who knows? It's all agenda-driven news and commentary anyway. But that's the big news. And then I guess the other big news story is, well, a couple of big ones. And that is Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, who is in some hot water over this shooting down of these boats. This one's a little more interesting because there are a number of Republicans, including Rand Paul, who is they're not shy about coming out and being critical of this double tap, as they like to call it. Now, there are some Republicans like Eric Schmidt from Missouri, who is a Republican, still very much supporting the president, and I guess anything that's in this military story, they're supporting and has the support from the Republican Party. But there's a number of Republicans who are somewhat critical of this story and are saying they want to have hearings, saying they want to have some type of investigation. Now, look, we all know that these investigations take months, take years. They fall into the politics of the day, and who knows if any of these hearings will lead anywhere. So it's all sort of a show on Capitol Hill. But this one's kind of interesting because there are a lot of military guys and a lot of Republicans, not a lot, but some who are questioning the administration. And of course, you can paint the arguments one way or the other. But I don't know. I find that interesting. And then the other one is this Luigi Mangione story. This guy who shot this United Healthcare CEO in broad daylight in New York City. It was almost a year ago, just about a year ago. And then a few days later, he was caught in a McDonald's. Well, they're having a evidentiary hearing going on right now. And today was day 2. And they're trying to determine if some of the evidence in this case is going to be allowed to be shown at trial. And I am certainly not a lawyer, but I'm sort of following this very closely. And I don't mean to make light of this because it is a tragic story where this Luigi Mangione allegedly shot this guy in broad daylight. He was walking into a hotel. They have video, but the video's grainy. Can you really tell it's the guy? I don't know. But the knapsack, right? They rummaged through the knapsack and they found the clips and the guns and all this evidence. And so his lawyers are in court yesterday and today arguing over whether or not the police properly sought and had proper cause, I guess I'm trying to say, to look in the knapsack to find all this evidence. And I talked to experts today, and I don't know if it's a Hail Mary by the defense or if they've got some legitimate grounds, but it does sound like an episode of Law and Order where Jack McCoy comes to the rescue, and Jack McCoy is making the argument that this should be let in, and his people are making the arguments that it shouldn't be let in. It'll be fascinating to see how this judge rules, because apparently the judge has ruled in the past that there are certain things that have been disallowed by this judge. So we'll wait and see. If I don't think he's going to rule after the break. He's going to take some time, but it'll be interesting to see how this thing rules. And if they do throw out the evidence, there are some experts who are saying it will be harder to charge this guy and to convict him if they don't have the evidence. So we'll wait and see. I don't know if it's going to happen. Who knows? But I'm watching this, and it's turning out to be a pretty good episode of Law and Order. All right, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw. That goes to 1-844-262-4729. It's an open phones hour. The hour is all yours. I want to keep this hour open for everybody. You are officially welcome to come in and talk about the news of the day, something we talked about, something we can chew the fat on, or something you want to go rogue and talk about something off the board. We'll take all comers. Daryl in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hey, welcome to Atlantic City on WOND 1400.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Daryl. I appreciate that.
So this situation with Pete Hegseth, tonight on CNN, they were showing a tape from him from 2016 where he was speaking, I don't know whether it was a guest in front of some military people, and he made the point that illegal orders need to be made sure not to be followed, that if an illegal order is given to you by someone way up the chain, generals and admirals and things like that, or whether or not it's just a captain or a sergeant in front of you, that the illegal order should be checked. And so again, from the hoisted by his own petard.
Yeah.
But to have him say that he first said that he watched it all in real time, and now he's saying, well, I was only there for the beginning, then I went to a meeting. After listening to his speech in front of the captive audience of all the generals and admirals of the world, of our country, where he talked about the lethality of the U.S. military and that we're out there to kill, basically. I just don't believe him in any way, shape, or form that he just walked away from watching one of the first strikes of these drug boats, and now he's going to blame it on the general, I guess, below him. It's just cowardice.
Well, what I find interesting, what I find interesting about this story, Daryl, is the White House is obviously flailing. Right? Yeah. They've said it didn't happen. Then they said it did happen. Then he said he did give the order, but then he said he left it to the general, and now he's saying I wasn't there. But right, I mean they can't get on the same page on this story. And then now that this story's out there, the video from the 6 senators might make a lot more sense, because when that story first broke, we were like, that's a weird video to release for no reason, right? They just arbitrarily, 6 of them got together and decided don't follow illegal orders, right? And then that big well, now do we have some context where they knew this was coming, this sort of boat issue where they went back and got the 2 people who were clinging to the side of the ship? It's the White House clearly is flailing. Yeah. They don't have a good answer for this. And the fact that the Republicans, some are sort of making them squirm a little bit, they haven't handled it very well. Hegseth hasn't handled it very well. This guy's been under the gun ever since he texted the military orders to a journalist. So we'll just wait and see how it happens. But, I mean, so far, they haven't handled this thing very well.
So as they always say, it's not the instance, it's the cover-up. There's going to be somebody who shows that he was in the room the entire time, I really hope. Or the general's going to say, no, here's the order on paper where it says make sure there are no survivors or something like that. So hopefully it'll take him down. But my last thing about the unlawful orders, the White House has decided that they're talking about the president, or they're talking about the Secretary of Defense, not the Secretary of War. And they're trying to say, they're trying to take on us. But in reality, it could be the sergeant or the captain or the lieutenant of a National Guard troop that maybe a group of Mexicans are running across a field, and the sergeant says, open fire, take them down. That's an illegal order. It's going from the very bottom of the chain of command all the way up to the top, that if anyone orders you to do something that you know or you firmly believe is not a lawful order, that you have a responsibility to make sure that you challenge it. And it doesn't have to be the president of the United States, the chairman, the chief. It can be even just a sergeant, in a patrol in the Marines or the Army.
Daryl, you'll get the last word. Thanks for the phone call. Thanks for checking in.
All right. See you tomorrow night, maybe.
You got it. Marianne in Atlanta. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
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 Hi, how are you? You're on the air. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I just think that it's so powerful to have a protection of a president that puts our nation first. And if there are dangerous terroristic things coming into our country, and that he is putting them down, and that's all that matters. He's got to protect. That's his job, is to protect and put our country first. And he's doing that. And Pete is his soldier. And for us to question we elected these people and we trust what they are doing. And how can we question what they are up to when we don't know all the details? Either we trust them or we don't. And were those people about to do things to bring our nation down? Absolutely. And I trust what they did. Picking it apart is a waste of time.
Did you support President Biden when he did something?
Biden was a sock puppet. He was not.
But hold on a second. President Biden was elected. Why do you trust Trump explicitly and Biden not at all?
Because Biden
they were both duly elected.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
No, it's not.
The fact is, but Biden became the president, and that's the way it unfolded. But what I'll say is, Biden did not put our country first.
Okay. Well, look, obviously, you're a Trump supporter, and no matter what Donald Trump does, you're going to agree with. What do you make of the fact that he pardoned the president of Honduras, who was found guilty of bringing tons and tons of cocaine into this country?
I think that Trump has a unique ability to use a filter when it comes to what he needs to do strategically to make the best deal for our country. And sometimes there is sacrifice and things that he probably wishes he didn't need to do, but knows long term it will pay off for our country.
So it's a long-term benefit to pardon the president of Honduras who brought tons and tons of cocaine into this country.
I think that it's quite clear that he is fighting against the drug lords coming into our country. There is no question.
Well,
he has never done a drug. He has never had a drink. He does not have any interest in anything but making our country better. And
Marianne, I got to run. Thank you for the phone call. We'll take more phone calls on the other side. 1-844-2-McGraw. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Stay right there. We found the clip of Pete Hegseth. We're back in a moment. McGraw Milhaven, America at Night with phone calls straight ahead.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, sorry about that. I'll get that clock down. I apologize for breaking late there. I'm still getting used to the clock, so sorry about that. It's Open Phones, America, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw. The hour is all yours. Whatever you want to talk about, wherever you are, let me know what you're doing out there. And, just listening coast to coast, talking coast to coast. It's the best part of talk radio right here. It's my favorite part. So 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. We had a caller from Atlantic City, Daryl, call up a while ago and tipped us off to a CNN clip of Pete Hegseth back in 2016 giving a speech. And in this speech, what appears to be, it looks like a group of veterans giving a speech saying very much what those 6 senators said when they said you're supposed to refuse an illegal order. We found the clip, and so we're going to play it. Daryl tipped us off to it, but this was just sort of recently surfaced, I guess, in the last couple of hours. So, Richard, play that clip of Pete Hegseth from 2016.
I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
Sounds pretty similar to what the 6 Democratic senators said, and that are now being investigated by Pete Hegseth's Secretary of Defense for the same thing he said back in 2016. Don't you just love politics? All right, let's go back to the phones. Jane in Saratoga, New York. Jane, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you, and you are great. You're really great.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to point out something with Obama and Biden. I ran into them at a rally a couple of years ago, and they were there together, and they were up on a podium, and the national anthem started, and everyone saluted the flag, put their hands over their hearts. Everybody but Biden and Obama. And they were standing there talking. So when they came down from the podium, I confronted them. I said, "Excuse me, could you tell me why you were the only two who did not salute the flag?" And Biden's comment was, "Why would we?" So I think that's pretty telling, don't you?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty telling that you were able to get so close to them. The Secret Service didn't sort of stop you. You walked right up to them. That's pretty amazing.
I'm a retired investigative reporter and also child abuse counselor, and I know a lot of people, so they will let me through for certain situations. And
where was this rally?
It was in Kentucky.
Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing that you were able to get even a respected journalist, I would think, wouldn't have access the way you could just walk up to them at a rally. That's pretty amazing.
It's cool. And Biden, no matter where he is, he cannot hold back his negative comments. The man's a moron.
Well, President of Trump got into that when he's, called John McCain. He's not a war hero because he was captured. And then, if you remember, President Trump's chief of staff went on to say that Trump said that he doesn't like going to military cemeteries because they're filled with losers, right? So Trump has denied that, but John Kelly is a general whose son died in Afghanistan. So it is what it is. I think you believe what you want to believe, right, Jane?
Yes, and I think Trump's and I said this to him one time. His most outstanding quality is that he is not a typical politician.
Yeah, and you said this to Trump?
Yep.
Oh, yep. So you just walked up to him at a rally, and man, you got some access, Jane. I should hang out with you.
I'm not shy.
Clearly. I mean, and clearly the Secret Service lets you go right up. Do you have a secret pass or a secret handshake or something?
No, I've just known people over the years, and sometimes if you can mention the proper names and certain situations, then you're eligible to speak. And it's awesome.
Pretty good.
It really is. And someday I'll tell you what Trump did to a bunch of kids out in front of Trump Tower. My daughter and her friends one day.
All right. Well, this is a family show, Jane. I don't want to get into that.
No, it was good. Okay.
Oh, it was good. Okay. All right. Good.
It was great. So if you'd rather, I wouldn't do it.
How about next time, Jane?
Okay, I will do that. It's a very good thing, though. No, I wouldn't.
All right. No. There you go. No. Jane, thank you very much for calling. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for checking in. Jane from Saratoga, New York. Never got that type of access. Go to a rally with two presidents. After they get off the stage, you walk right up to them. Amazing. All right, phone numbers 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw, or 1-844-262-4729. The hour is all yours. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to comment on, whatever you want to hang out with and talk about, the hour is all yours. So what else we got going on in the world? Bitcoin had a bad day. Bitcoin dropped below $85,000. And then I was reading some story I think it came off a Drudge, about a couple. It was a Russian couple, but this is not a one-off here. But I don't have any Bitcoin, and I'm kind of glad I don't. But there are cryptocurrency conventions out there where they teach self-defense because the bad guys are coming after you if you've got Bitcoins. Now, the bad guys might rob the bank, but the bad guys aren't going to necessarily rob you for your money in the bank because there's a chain of command with the money, right? If you give them your bank account, the bank's not going to give them the money, right? They got to show some type of proper ID, and so your money is safe at the bank. But with Bitcoins, the only record of you having the Bitcoin is your password. That's it. So if you give your password to somebody else, then they own the Bitcoin, right? By the way, if you lose your password, there's no button that says, lost my password, please reset my password. So there have been stories of people who have Bitcoin, but have lost their password and have lost it forever. And now you're starting to hear these stories of these people who are being kidnapped, tortured, killed for their password for Bitcoin. Because once you start pulling out the fingernails and once you give up the password, then whoever gets it can then take all your money. So this Bitcoin is an interesting conversation. Anyway, I don't have any of it, but it dipped below $85,000. Which sounds to me like it's a problem, right? Sounds to me, because who out there hasn't put in a password convinced that this was your password, right? I know this is my password, and it doesn't work. No, I know for a fact this is my password, and it's not your. That would have happened to me. I bought some Bitcoin. If I would have bought Bitcoin, I would have put the password. I'm like, no, I swear this is the password. No, it's not. Yes, it is. I promise you this. No, it's not. But there is no button to say, please reset your password. So Bitcoin is an interesting play out there. Whether it's all the other ones too, but Bitcoin, right? That's the first. So that's the biggest, but it dipped below 85,000. It was up around 120 at some point. So, all right, open phones continues. If you're on the phone, hold on. We have a couple of lines open for you right now. 1-844-2-McGraw. 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. I've been promised by the end of the week we'll get the text line up so we can have a whole lot of text conversation as well. But until then, the only way to get a hold of us, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll come back. More phone calls on the other side. Couple of lines open for you right now, 1-844-2-McGraw. Back in a moment, America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, it's open phones, America at Night, 1-844-2-McGraw. Back to the phones we go. Anna in Alabaster, Alabama. Welcome to America at Night.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for calling.
I'm blessed. Hey, I just want to get your opinion on this Erica Kirk and J.D. Vance. Is this fake news that they maybe, are getting friendly with one another and that J.D. and Hanushek may be divorced? And I would just kind of want your opinion on that. And the whole scandal about fake tears with her. I mean, I think she's really mourning, but everybody's making such a big deal about the tissue and her, patting her eyes so much. And I don't know. What's your opinion on all that?
Well, inquiring minds want to know. Let me tell you this, Anna. A grieving wife can grieve any way she wants. And if it was a strange embrace of even friends who lost a loved one, right? When the funeral happened, it was a strange embrace. But, everyone looks into it however they want to look into it. And I know now there's a couple of pictures of J.D. Vance's wife not wearing the wedding ring. I know a lot of women who, don't wear wedding rings and then leave it on the sink when they go pick up the kids, or they got to go, do the laundry. I don't know if she's necessarily doing the laundry as a famous, high-end person that she is. They might have people who are doing the laundry for them. I don't know. I don't think we have any idea. Every time I think a celebrity couple is breaking up, they're together, and every time I think they're together, they're breaking up. I would probably tend to fall on the side of, I think the vice president and his wife are in a loving relationship and everything's fine. And, to read too much into it, I think is probably too much trouble. You're probably right. Right. I mean, we're all for a good scandal, but I really don't think the vice president and his wife are going to break up. But, Al Gore and Tipper Gore got divorced years later. So, but yet, Clinton and Hillary stayed together. So who knows? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and then there was a rumor about Obama and Michelle breaking up, too. But apparently there's nothing to that.
So, yeah, I mean, as my mother said, everyone thinks that they have the perfect life across the street. You don't know what happens behind closed doors. So who knows? Right. Anna, thanks for the phone call, Anna. Let's get to Sedona, Arizona. Gorgeous, beautiful Sedona, Arizona. Pat, thanks for checking in. Good morning.
Hey, McGraw, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Pat.
It's good to hear your voice, and you're taking over. I listened to you last night for the first time. I just couldn't get your phone number down, so I couldn't get on here. But I would like to ask a question about the seditious six, because we have a senator that's in there. His name is Kelly, and we all know he's a rubber stamp for the Democratic Party. And there was a gentleman I was listening to today. I'm not going to mention him because it's not proper to talk about in our station while I'm on this one, because I like you and I want to see you succeed, is this guy named Thompson. I wish I had more of his name, but he's a very, very wealthy liberal, and he's the money behind it. And he was talking about follow the money, and you'll find out why this is happening. And it's like he went through the steps. Now we've had this boat, and we had these two supposedly survivors, and that they killed them while they were floating in the water. Nothing's been proven. It's just like, the seditious six came up with follow the orders, don't have to follow the orders, and they didn't have any sneak, instances. Now something has appeared to pop up. Thank you to the media, which you don't know me, but I really am very suspicious of our media today. I think they have, there is no Walter Cronkite. That's how old I am. Walter Cronkite's out there anymore, and
well, let me ask you this question, Pat. I got to cut you off because I'm short on time. We played a clip earlier in the hour of Pete Hegseth saying virtually the same thing your Democratic senator said about not following an illegal order. So does that mean Pete Hegseth is now part of the seditious seven?
I know. It really gets going on this. And
you got Pete Hegseth and Senator Kelly saying the same exact thing. Pete Hegseth said it in 2016. Senator Kelly said it in 2025, but it's the same thing. So how do you square that?
I know. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, just to tell you, I'm retired military. I was in the military. I was in the Navy for 12 years.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. Again, I'm short on time. Call back tomorrow and we can talk more. But you know the military code of justice and the handbook. Are you supposed to not follow an illegal order?
I'll tell you what, that has a real gray area. And it's
No. I'm not asking about the actual order. I'm saying, Are you supposed to follow an illegal order?
If you feel that the order is doing something that is against whatever the mission is, I guess I would say yes. But
okay, so now we're up to the seditious 8. We got the 6 of them. We got Pete Hegseth, and now we got you, Pat.
Well, I'll tell you this. In combat, which I've been in, I mean, are there rules? There ain't no rules.
Well, no, that's no. Now we're getting into what rules are legal and what isn't, and that's a whole bunch of gray area. I get that, but the concept is what the senators were talking about, and the concept was what Pete Hegseth was quoted as saying. Pat, I thank you for the phone call. We are out of time for night number 2. All the nice comments, thank you very much. We'll continue the conversation tomorrow night. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.